TomoNews presents Bees. Heaven has a new beekeeper. An Ohio woman whose post went viral for her unique maternity shoot has suffered a heartbreaking tragedy. Last August, beekeeper Emily Mueller celebrated her pregnancy by posing with 20,000 live bees on her baby bump. Just days before her due date, the mom of 3 realized her baby had not been moving around. Her contractions also felt strange and different. Feeling uneasy, Mueller and her husband went to the hospital, where an ultrasound revealed that the baby had no heartbeat and had passed on. Mueller delivered her stillborn son the next day, naming him Emerson Jacob. She decided to send the placenta for testing to hopefully find out what went wrong, but strongly suspects that the baby died from a blood clotting issue that has previously caused miscarriages in her family. A small device called a cuddle cot allowed the Muellers to spend more time with their little beekeeper before finally saying goodbye. Thousands of bees swarm over Indonesia airplane's wing. This awesome and terrifying sight, caught on film and uploaded to Instagram last Friday afternoon, shows what looks like thousands of bees swarming over a CityLink Indonesia airplane's right wing. This plane landed at around 11:40 a.m. and was heading toward its parking spot when passengers noticed their vessel was surrounded by a swarm of bees. The bee swarm formed a thick black cloud and clung to the plane's wing as they created a nest. According to CityLink's vice president, the bees were later removed from the aircraft when water was sprayed onto the wing with a fire hose. And the removal process only caused a 90-minute delay. The vice president theorized that logging practices that have disrupted the bees' natural habitat may have forced them to look for a new home, in this case, on the wing of a plane. No passengers were harmed in the incident. The same probably can't be said for the bees.
Scientists discover bumblebees can learn and share tool use capabilities. Researchers at Queen Mary University of London studying bumblebees have made a scientific breakthrough, observing that the bees were able to learn and share information regarding the use of tools. In the series of experiments, the scientists placed 3 sugar-filled artificial flowers underneath a glass table, each tied to a string. Out of 110 bees put through the test, 2 managed to use the string as a rope to pull the flower out to get to the sugar. In another test, untrained bees were placed behind a transparent wall as they watched another bee retrieve the sugar. When put through the same conditions, 60% of the untrained bees were able to successfully navigate the experiment. Even after the trained bees had died, the learned skills remained in the colony. This research demonstrates that bee colonies may house more advanced cultures than previously understood, with the ability to pass on knowledge seen as a complex phenomena of social groups. Puppy stung by thousands of bees and abandoned by owners at the vet. A 10-month-old puppy in Michigan made a painful misstep in his early life, as you can clearly see from the terrible wounds littering his entire body. Earlier this week, the young pit bull mix was sniffing around and investigating, as puppies do, when he stumbled into a swarm of ground bees, nesting in the dirt beneath him. Before he knew it, the pup was under attack by thousands of the flying kamikazes. When he was brought into the vet, his owners reportedly wiped their hands clean and left him behind. Luckily, the Love and Pups animal shelter brought him in and is taking care of him until he's back to his normal self. The dog, given the name Stinger by his new keepers, is not out of the woods just yet though. Veterinarians discovered a sarcoptic mange, a highly contagious skin disease in dogs caused by mites that burrow into the skin and result in unbearable itchiness. The animal rescue is raising funds for little Stinger to get the best care money can buy, and the hope is new owners will come by and he'll live a long and sting-free life from here on out.
Local Utah news media are abuzz over the discovery of an enormous beehive in the aptly named Beehive State. Cabin owner Paul Bertinoli became concerned when he noticed several honeybees in his house. Experts Vic Bachman and his partner were stunned when they found a beehive that was 16 inches deep, 4 feet wide, and 12 feet long. That's taller than Carmelo Anthony. The bees were smoked for pacification before they were collected with a vacuum cleaner. About 60,000 bees were collected, weighing an incredible 15 pounds in total. The cost of the removal, $600, must have stung, but at least the bees weren't harmed and their home was reconstructed in another location.
Oh, dude. Should've just called a professional. A homeowner in Georgia probably thought he was pretty smart last week. Hey, I'll burn them bees out of that hive, yeah! I mean, overall, it was a good concept, but poor execution. Because he also kind of like burned most of his house down. Huh, that'll teach those bees. In an attempt to get rid of the beehive he found near the roof of his house, the unnamed homeowner decided to poke the thing with a stick he'd set aflame. But guess what? As soon as the man began to execute his awesome plan, he accidentally, literally, set the roof on fire. The flames quickly burned down the attic and the majority of the structure, and in a matter of smoky seconds, poof, it was gone. Yep, bye-bye house. Firefighters later put the fire out, and luckily no human injuries were reported. But we do imagine the guy learned at least one lesson. Next time you see a beehive, it's a lot cheaper to call an exterminator.
Are bees going extinct? Reports show high rate of US bee deaths. Annual surveys have shown a trend in bee deaths in America. The Bee Informed Partnership has released its annual survey of the national health of bees in America, and yet again, the number of colonies is shrinking. The Bee Informed Partnership collected data from 5,700 beekeepers across 48 states for its annual survey, and found that from April 2015 to April 2016, American beekeepers have lost 44% of their hives. Losses in summer 2015, a season bees are known to thrive in, increased to 28.1% of hives, the same rate of loss for winter the same year. A culprit in the bee losses is the varroa mite, a lethal parasite that can easily spread between colonies. Pesticides and malnutrition caused by single flower farms near hives are also likely taking a toll, especially among commercial beekeepers. Bees pollinate fruit, nuts, and vegetables, with some crops entirely dependent on honeybees. Around the world, bees and other pollinators are responsible for 35% of crops, worth an incredible $577 billion. The White House reported that honeybees contribute more than $15 billion to the U.S. economy annually.
What's all the buzz about? This dude in Hillside, New Jersey was having a bee problem for a while. To solve it, he brought in a bespoke specialist in the form of Mickey the Beekeeper late last month. They found something unbelievable inside the walls of his house in the form of 30,000 bees and 40 pounds of honey. But these were the sorts of bugs you could not befriend. They're reportedly some mad aggro close to that of killer bees, which is such a buzzkill because look at all that honey. But that's besides the point. All 30,000 had to buzz off after being evicted from the house during a single night, but not before stinging the beekeeper nearly 40 times. They were relocated to a local church that lost its beehive in the summer. Now, how's that for a beautiful ending?
Warning: no bees were injured in the freeing of this motorcycle. This video was posted on Facebook by the Washington County Sheriff's Office in Oregon. An officer there parked his motorcycle while working the scene of an accident. The next thing you know, some bees with a sense of humor decided to do a flash mob on the back of his bike. Glenn Matalini lives nearby and snapped these photos. It reportedly took about an hour to gather the bees into a box. The insects were then turned over to a local beekeeper. And per the disclaimer posted on the Sheriff's Department's Facebook page, not a single bee was injured.
Follow us down the rabbit hole. Visit the TomoNews.net website or download the app today.
Most of the world's honey has pesticides in it. Are you getting enough insecticides in your daily diet? Well, looks like honey is a sweet source for it. Neonicotinoid pesticides are showing up in honey on every continent with honeybees. Around 200 samples of honey were tested, and 75% were found to contain measurable levels of at least one of the 5 common neonicotinoids. The insecticide works by targeting crop-destroying insects' central nervous system. A number of studies have also found that the insecticide reduces and weakens honeybee hives. Pesticide levels vary between regions. In North America, 86% of samples contain pesticides, Asia, 80%, Europe, 79%, Africa, 73%, the Australian region, 71%, and South America, 57%. Bees and other pollinators are necessary to 3/4 of the world's food crops, but have been declining in number in recent decades. Destruction of wild habitats, disease, and massive pesticide use are all contributing factors.
Here's some news that won't give you a buzz. Popular pesticides used on common crops prevent bees from laying eggs and could eventually cause bee populations to die out. That would be a disaster for us humans because we rely on bees to pollinate much of our food. A group of pesticides known as neonicotinoids are used on some of the most commonly grown crops in the US, including corn, soybean, and canola. According to a study in the UK, the neonicotinoid thiamethoxam is harmful to bee populations. The study showed that in laboratory conditions, bumblebee queens exposed to the pesticide were 26% less likely to lay eggs. However, the study said that other factors in the wild, such as the loss of wild flowers, parasites, or climate change, may also have a harmful impact on bee populations. Without queen bees laying eggs, there would be no bee colonies, so the results of the study are likely to lead to further calls to restrict the use of pesticides. Neonicotinoids were temporarily banned in the European Union in 2013, and the EU may now decide to make that ban permanent.
Obama unveils plan to save honeybees from extinction. On Tuesday, the Obama administration unveiled a strategy intended to stop beehive colony collapse in the United States. Bees pollinate much of the agricultural food we eat, but 40% of commercial honeybee colonies died off last winter, putting our food supply at risk. The White House's plan, to be carried out by the USDA and EPA, includes devoting 7 million acres of federal land to pollinator habitat, reducing annual honeybee deaths to 15% by 2025, and returning monarch butterfly numbers from 30 million to 220 million in 5 years. The plan also calls for more studies of the class of pesticides known as neonicotinoids, which kill pests but might also weaken bee immune systems. Weaker bees are more easily killed by invasive Varroa destructor mites and poor nutrition from monocultural farming practices. Critics of the plan say it focuses too narrowly on commercial honeybees out of 4,000 bee species in North America, and that there is no specific action plan to increase butterfly numbers. Finally, some insist neonic pesticides should be banned immediately, though Australia, which is free of Varroa mites, uses neonics yet has avoided colony collapse.
The EU has voted to ban the use of 3 of the most widely used neonicotinoid pesticides over fears they are linked to a decrease in bee populations across the continent. Seed is treated with neonicotinoid pesticide, then coated with talc. The pesticide persists in the environment and in the plants, including the pollen, which bees carry back to the hive. Neonicotinoids bind irreversibly to the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors of an insect's central nervous system. It is claimed that once exposed to neonicotinoid pesticides, bees have trouble finding their hives and suffer a range of other detrimental effects, eventually resulting in the collapse of the hive. The EU pesticide ban will only cover flowering crops attractive to bees for a period of 2 years.